produced by Inform Action. It is actually an advocacy platform to provide a voice to the voiceless. This is our second episode, and our discussions will be revolving around the Constitution of Kenya. It is 15 years since Kenya promulgated its constitution, and the discussions will revolve around how we actualize the promises as we continue to take a look back at the vision that the constitution bared and our current realities and how we forge our way forward. So I'll first start with the introductions, and then we'll have a conversation around several topical areas around the constitution.
I'm Boniface Moema Harrison, founder and executive director at Moema Action Post, and I'm also an alumnus of the Greco Digital Democracy Fellowship. It's much pleasure to be part of this conversation and contribute to insights about the overview, progress of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, marking 15 years onwards. Thank you very much.
My name is Kawive Wabua. I am the executive director of Inuka Kenya Nisisi, a civil society organization working with the citizen groups to create a movement of citizens for accountability, Nisisi movement.
My name is John Owegi. I am the executive director of Civic Freedoms Forum, a national platform whose agenda is protection and promotion of civic space in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. So we'll start on, and let's just get right into it. We have spoken about the Constitution, and this is about the 15th year since it was promulgated. So the first conversation that we'd want to speak around is the vision that was envisioned during the making of the Constitution and the current reality that we have right now. Is the promise achieved currently, or do we feel there is a whole diversion or divergent areas in which what was envisioned and the current reality that we are living in right now? So I'll start here, and each and everyone will have a time to speak. Thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah, so broadly looking at it, our understanding of the Constitution, the reason why it was promulgated was to create a more prosperous Kenya, a country which citizens would be freer, a country that would be guided by constitutionalism, and also a country that would live by the principles of accountability, more development to the local people, because there was the introduction of counties, and that is the devolution. So the promise, the aspiration of the 2010 Constitution was great, and it still remains, because we say the Constitution is a living document. There has been a lot of progress that has been happening around constitutionalism, rule of law, corruption. We see a lot of trends around the kind of leadership that we have been having. So broadly, and now where we are today is a step where we can look back and look at the wins that we have had, and also the misses that we have hit, because we still struggle with the challenges of the corruption in government. We still have inequality in the distribution of resources. We are still experiencing issues like police brutality, officials who don't obey court orders. There was a time when we experienced a minister who could not respect any court order. All of them, they were just disobeying them. So there has been a lot, and I hope in the conversation continues, we're going to have more detailed and focused insights around key issues. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Kawive, speak around the vision versus our reality currently in Kenya.
The making of the Constitution started in earnest in the 90s and was by the close of the 90s in 2000, there was already a national convening for the Constitution. And after that, then the violence in 2007, and now the actualization of the constitution process. The express need for the constitution was as a result of, one, political organizing. It had been captured by the Kano regime. Two, the question of poverty, that Kenyans were not able to access the resources to develop and create wealth equitably. And then three, the question of the rights, right to associate, right to speak, freedom of speech rather, and all these other rights, socioeconomic rights as well. And the other bit was ending marginalization. How do all regions of Kenya, get equal or similar treatment? And of course, underpinning all this was the question of accountability. How do governments, people in power, become more accountable to citizens for our resources and for our rights? Now, so that was realized in 2010. But today, if we go through all those indices I've mentioned, we are worse. Today, there are more people being killed for expressing the freedom to associate and to meet and to demonstrate. Today, the cost of basic commodities, the cost of education, the cost of life has gone so high up because corruption and mismanagement of resources is like the order of day for people who get into public office. People get into public office to steal our resources. And so now there is a meeting of very many thieves together without check and balance. Because if you look at the independence of parliament, does not exist. The independence of the judiciary, questionable. But we are sure that parliament is gone. We don't have a parliament. So we have an executive ruling by fiat, mobilizing members of parliament and other organs of state. Right now we are having a question of the Kenya National Commission of Human Rights, an UDA mobilizer and strategist coming to be the chair of the Kenya National Human Rights Commission. What that means is that all these institutions are captured. The things that we fought for, the things that we aspire to get in the Constitution are being denied. And I think for us, for Kenya, the only thing we should not be surprised about is why this is happening, because we know the people who said we don't need a constitution in 2010 are the ones in public office today. Ruto and Uhuru for the last 10 years, they are the ones who are in the no campaign in 2010. So they didn't want the constitution, and therefore they have to do everything in their power to kill the dream of the constitution. Unfortunately, it was said they were elected by citizens. It was said because of
the majority had their say. Yeah. Thank you very much, Kawive. We'll speak to John, and please just take some time to speak around the vision versus reality. What are we experiencing now? Is it what we had envisioned 2010, where Kenya was said to be one of the happiest countries in the world? Yeah. What is our reality now?
Thank you, Biko. As Kawive was speaking, I remembered one of the regional forums that we had in Nairobi a few months back. East, Central, and Southern African civil society members met in Nairobi, and the agenda was to look at civic and democratic space in East, Central, and Southern Africa. And when we told our story as Kenyans, when we shared our reports, when we shared our human rights reports, the Civicas report, the CFF Index 2024 report, everyone in the East African region, Central and Southern, said, no, you guys, you are lying. Kenya is way better. In these other countries, people are suffering. You guys, your space is open, your democracies. But you see, the challenge is that they are comparing themselves to Kenya, not to the to the global human rights standards. Now, this constitution, if you look at it, the preamble and Article 1 speak one language, and I think that is where we should be, that should be the starting point. We, the people. The sovereign power belongs to the people, which means that even as we have this institution, we have governments, elected representatives, that what people should appreciate first, and I think that was the intention of the framers of the Constitution, that the people need to have more voice in government. They need to genuinely, their voices need to be genuinely be considered in all decision-making levels in government. Their decision needed to inform development at county level, the laws that are being formulated. What we are seeing currently is a complete opposite. You saw, you've just seen how, from last year, how the state has reacted to the people's voices. If you just write any tweet on your social media, that the government believes that could be probably something that is against what they're already doing, they'll come for you. We have seen even attempted amendments to several sections of the Constitution. We've seen several processes, of course, that are actually trying to take us back to where we were. We saw the BBI process, for instance, and we also have some current debates around possible changes into the Constitution, plus other legislations. We just saw recently, of course, it has been withdrawn by the Nairobi women representative, a very punitive colonial status kind of a legislation that aimed at hindering the spirit of Article 37, freedom of assembly. So in terms of the aspirations, what we aspired to achieve with this constitution, we are still way below. We are still way below. Last year when we had the Katiba Day conversation, it was very obvious that what we hoped to achieve versus where we are at, it's still very low. And I think there was also a scorecard. And in terms of democracy, the president and his former deputy, now former, scored D's. It's very obvious. Even in terms of socioeconomics now, we have a constitution that expressly indicates that we are supposed to have free and compulsory education. Where is that? The compulsory part is still very prominent, but it seems the free, the government would like to take that away from the... Yeah, so the constitution is being mutilated part by part, bit by bit. And I think Kenyans need to ask themselves whether this kind of regime needs to be given whether they are even worthy of another opportunity. It's been very clear. They've said that the people need to speak in 2027 after the first term is done. But it's very clear that even the institutions that are supposed to support such processes like IEBC, Kenya National Commission, as my colleague has already said, they are already the hands of the regime within them to just manipulate.
Yeah. So allow me to pick it up from there and just roll through with that conversation. We have given a very grim picture of what the Constitution looks like right now in terms of our current realities and what was envisioned. So are there any areas that you've seen some form of progress? Now that if we were to do a scorecard right now across this table, the ratings would be pretty much bad. So are there any areas that you've seen some form of progress constitutional-wise? Are we progressive like we have said, or it has been repeated several times like your colleagues from different countries were saying Kenya has one of the most progressive constitutions? Guys can speak. Kawive highlighted a few areas around political organizing, poverty, equitable distribution of wealth, ending marginalization, accountability. Do you think those spaces currently as scored, do we have any form of progress, whether little or none, or where would you score that in form of progress constitutionally here in Kenya?
I mean, if I look at it broadly, over 15 years, my position would be slightly different, because over the past 15 years, we've had some progress also made. But then over the past 2 years, we've had those progress actually regressed. Now, looking at 15 years of implementation, Kenya has had some progress. And I think one of those progress, I mean, when we just started implementing this constitution, we had some police reforms. The merging of the nation, I mean, of the Kenya, I mean, the regular police and the APs. We've had some guidelines. We had the National Police Commission, and of course we also the vetting. So we had some slight reforms in the police sector. The constitution envisioned, and of course we've also seen to an extent there. I mean, we've had Inspector General, you know what we used to have under the former regime. However, of course, we've also seen the political elite manipulating that sector. That is just one. In terms of access to information, and I think also powered with technology, we've also made some progress in terms of, how citizens can access information. You compare before 2010 and post 2010, access to information, has been relatively better than before that, even though we still have very serious opaque systems. and of course, the state continues to use usual excuses like national security, all that kind of stuff, or even delay tactics, so that we just don't have. We've also seen establishment of independent commissions. Whether they are working or not is another debate. But we've seen establishment of the Ombudsman, establishment of IPOA, establishment of the National Commission. We've seen several commissions coming up, and of course, in one occasion they are functional, in some occasions they are captured by the state. So, in that we've also seen some progress over the past 15 years.
All right. I'd want to rope in both Boniface and Kawive. Kawive was at the heart of the, let me say, just creation of the constitution, part of the teams that went through the documentation, the clamor for it. Do you feel any form of progress in any of the areas highlighted? And I want to just to add in, now that you brought around the conversation around the political leadership, who for the most of the part are charged with leadership, either to advance the constitutionalism here in Kenya, the spirit and the letter into it. Do you feel any progress, or in totality they have, I don't know whether to use the word subverted it, or just made us regress to go back to almost the areas that we were at around 1992?
I think today we have actually gone back beyond 1982 on certain aspects. For example, the extrajudicial executions. During the time of Moi, around the 80s and whatever, even with the crackdown on Mwakenya, most of the people who were suspected to be in Mwakenya or to be dissidents, according to the definition of the government, were arrested. Hardly did we see people disappearing, being killed, being massacred, basically because we have. So in some aspect, we've gone back that way. But coming back to the first part of your question is that, for me, every time I reflect on today, I think that maybe it's because we had too much hope in the Constitution. We had, for 26 years, had no other discussion but around just saying we need a new set of laws to get this out of the way. And when in 2010 we got the Constitution, we were like, it's sorted, it's done, we've done it. Not knowing that the political question, the accountability question, is a human being question. It's a question that relies a lot on willpower, a lot on the kind of individual that comes into power, a lot on practice. For instance, it is very clear in the Constitution what Parliament is supposed to do. It's empowered, it is resourced to do that work. In the Constitution, it is very clear how the police is supposed to function. The independent police is supposed to not take orders from anyone, to have internal accountability mechanism and all that. It is very clear in the Constitution what freedoms Kenyans have and how they should be exercised, written down in that document. But today, Parliament has been captured. So all the things that we have written in the Constitution are not being practiced, per se. The other thing is that the police, I'm shocked that Owegi was talking about independent police reforms. No, there has not been even a single police reform. Maybe police realignment, yes. Name change and stuff like that. Uniform. But reform, no, there has been no police reform. Because when we talk about police reform, we talk about humanizing the police force as getting services served as opposed to being forced to do certain things the way the police want. We don't see those services. One or two people, they're good people in every bit. If you look at the constitutional provisions of the judiciary, they are very clear, independent judiciary and all that. But the first thing that the executive does is to ensure that the budget of the judiciary is not funded, is to ensure that it is very clear. You know, there's one provision that I like that says, it's actually a transitional clause. I don't remember which one, but it says that the national government shall restructure to be in accord with the county government. What does that mean? It means that where the county, for instance, has got is based on constituencies, what are called now sub-counties, that those will be the same units that the national government will use to do the administrative function. But that does not happen. They go and do their own thing. So, and when you look at how we wanted to organize our politics, saying that it will be multi-party, there will be freedom of association, there will be many parties that join in. But now, increasingly, we are seeing, instead of strengthening the opposition is getting weaker or weakened by that provision. So, for me, I look at it as in, we banked a lot on the document of social contract, but did not reform or did not work on the meat, sort of the soft infrastructure of a nation. We did not all agree that we cannot elect thieves. We cannot elect people who are not in sync with the national psyche. We cannot elect people who do not support positive, Utu-based kind of leadership and skills. So that is where the problem is, that there is, for example, more access to government infrastructure. If you talk about the information that you talked about, you can go to a Huduma center in a remote area and get services. You can easily get an ID. Even foreigners, people who are not Kenyans, I'm told, are getting IDs very quickly. So some of those services have been devolved, decentralized. If, for instance, you are from Kajiado, which was in the Rift Valley, you don't have to pass through Nairobi and go to Nakuru to get a service, or to live in Eastern if you are in Motito Andei, to come through Nairobi, go to Embu, get services, and then they have to go back. No, that has ended. So it's a positive thing. The other positive thing is there's money now going to the grassroots. Even if it's being stolen at the county level, there's a fact that money is going to do work there. So you're not the centralized. In Nairobi, people would steal everything from Nairobi. And the only thing you see in the village is the big-bellied men who come in big cars. But nowadays, at least even people with big cars and big bellies are living and working in the county area. So that's a good thing. It's like decentralizing development, which is which is a good thing. So, but you see, the negative part is that we have created a bigger, bloated administration and bloated, and many more thieves have emerged from all the spaces. So a lot of our money is being pilfered, is being wasted on things that are not useful for us as citizens. And then the worst part, and this is my last point, the worst part of it is that the Constitution can be disregarded and the consequences for the same not felt or not actioned. The parliament has created a law to say that you cannot recall parliamentarians, and there is no consequence to them. The president has bribed every parliamentarian to work for them, and there's no consequence for it. The president appoints people who are corrupt. Gen Zs demonstrate, and he reappoints them, and there's no consequences for that, at least not immediately. So maybe that's the one thing that we need to tighten a bit and see how do we operationalize Article 1 of the Constitution, the question of sovereignty, without the government using our success to kill us. There's another thing that we have to deal with properly in the Constitution, because my view is that citizens should overrun the government if it's not working for them. Yeah. And actually, in my view, the Constitution should provide for mechanism of establishing a government other than the one of the elections. Because clearly, if you now look at the organizing of Gen Zs, everybody's asking, and so what? Because the other way of establishing government, apart from elections, is termed as extra-constitutional, and therefore it is not provided for. But you see, we have got a political establishment that is so captured, that is so reliant on money, that good people who do not have money cannot compete. So you cannot get good people into leadership, and that's our problem. That is the thing that we need to fix with this constitution. But if you open the constitution for amendment and you give it to these same people, you are finished. Because they will amend it to ensure that their stomachs will always be full, and that's not what we want. Yes.
So that's a very very, very strong point. Let me come back to you, Boni, as we shift gears. You wanted to just highlight a few areas around if there's any progress, and if the political leadership have been given the chance to provide leadership in the implementation of this constitution. Have they advanced it or further subverted it? And to my first point around progress, and then we'll shift gears completely into a different topic here.
Great, thank you very much. It's much privilege actually to be in a panel with some of the most experienced experts who were actually even there when the constitution was being formulated. And I think one of the key things that have really strained the constitution has been the value system of our society, because a document can only be effective if the people are built well enough to live to its aspirations. So there has been a challenge as having what is in the law and has having the capacity morally to actually practice it. And that has also affected our political leaders who get a chance in office, because you find that we have a culture of corruption, cutting corners. So that person is not going to be any different once they get to office. The one win that we have had, for example, as young people, is actually growing up in a society that is better compared to one that was in the colonial period and even during the 1980s, because we have grown up to live up to very big dreams and aspiring for a very good country because we found the Constitution in our advanced years. I think another win that we have also had, which I will also open it for investigation, is establishment of institutions like EACC. Although yesterday I was seeing someone proposing that we need a special police that should tackle economic crimes like corruption, that we should not be having an economic crimes department being led by a bishop. But that needs to actually be evaluated. How best can we make EACC effective? Yeah. Do we see progress after and also another aspect is having the Senate. We have the Senate that does very good interrogations on governors who are corrupt, but we don't see a lot happening after that. So additionally, there has been the IEBC reforms that have been there that currently, which is also a subject of further investigation, that the votes that have been counted at the polling station are final. So, and then finally, the aspect of digitization. We have a lot of progress in terms of accessing services online. Today, there are some offices in government that you can send an email and they respond, or you can access services on digital platforms. So that has been a really good progress, and there is need to continue advancing.
Great, Boniface. Thank you for those highlights. I want us to shift gears a bit and just move into right into the civic awakening that perhaps happened last year. I think for the better part of last year, everybody, every corner, every media station, every conversation, looking at different statistics done by different people, there was some form of civic reawakening, and everybody was saying, hawa Gen Z wametuonesha njia mpya of how to deal or to claw back power, where you feel that this power has been shifted away from the people as the Constitution envisioned. So in your view, how were the Gen Z protests, and have they brought some form of civic reawakening, some form of us finding, tracking back to constitutionalism, away for, let me just say, citizens knowing that all sovereign power belongs to the people, because this was the most repeated statement over and over. And I think if we were to do any form of social media analytics, we'll find that this word would rank very high. So in terms of the civic reawakening, was this call to action by the younger people where we want to go constitutional-wise? And how do you view it in your own view? We'll start with Boniface, just a few highlights, and then move on to Kawive, and finally to Owegi.
Yes, great. Actually, the Gen Z reawakening politically was a significant milestone in our democracy, because it showed, as I mentioned before, a generation that feels frustrated because the hopes and aspirations that we have had as young people have not been fully met. And we saw an opening where the elder generation was opening for dialogue and willing to listen to the young people. And that is something that, to a great extent, I would say, did not achieve much results, because we saw respect, in quotes, where people stopped flying a lot. We saw people exercising a lot of humility, even when you could enter to a room and there are people from government, they would say, there are Gen Zs here, I don't know, we need to do this. But that movement needed a sustainability mechanism to ensure that what we are pushing for as young people really stands a place for the future. Because we saw people being purportedly fired from offices, but they have all been reinstated. We saw the young people who were fighting for better governance, but the people who are appointed to government are different people. So again, there is a need for the experience of the elders and the energy of the young people. And the unfortunate part is that sometimes the energy of the young people falls in experienced elder people, but who have ill intentions of still using young people for their own convenience. So there is that missing link, because the people who are actually being called to bring change wield the power, and the young people are out of the power. So for young people to really realize change, it calls for them to actually call some shots in the government itself. But also the kind of force that the youth, the Gen Zs were met with was totally uncalled for. And it was wrong, because then again, what began as a good cause turned political. We saw allegations of infiltration, allegations of goons from both sides, opposition and government. So then that diluted the just beginning youth call for change, and it was trivialized. And we still are seeing fellow young people calling for change. Now it is nane. We don't know if you go to tisa. There is a lot of frustration.
All right, thank you very Boniface. Kawive, having seen this through all the way from 92 up to this, what we call the civic reawakening currently, do you feel like there's a new civic consciousness coming up with the younger generation, or it's the same old that came from 92, and does it drive somewhere? Just speaking through the last year protests up to what we are seeing currently, the force that came with it, the clamping down of dissidents, the abductions and whatnot. Is there any form of civic reawakening that we are witnessing in Kenya currently?
There's nothing that has excited me in recent times like the youth protests from last year. Why? Because I'm a proponent of political education. That is turning from civic education, creating awareness, to actually people taking over the governance space and taking back their government. And therefore I was very thrilled that it happened last year. And I think to a great extent, this is the best thing that will happen in our lifetime. Why? Because there are three things that have happened. Number one, that any government coming to power will know that citizens have the capability to scare government. Because the reason why police are shooting young people is because they are scared of what young people can do. Without guns, just with water and with a slogan. So police are shooting because their political class is scared that these people can actually take over government. But the second thing for me is that the potential to galvanize the whole country around the youth protest in two ways. One, everybody can come out and join the protests, and we be so many out here in the streets that even the guns of the police cannot shoot all of us, and the government will capitulate. That's number one. And number two, all of us go to the votes and say everybody who was in power when our young people were being killed, when the demands for accountability were being ignored, should not be elected. And we, sort of sweep the board clean. Anybody, including this Raila, this Kalonzo, people who've got political bigwigs, and all the people in UDA and in government, all of them, those come out to be voted for again, we vote them out. The youth can mobilize us to do that. And I think this is very, very, very significant. So I think for me, the youth protests and what's happening, and I went to the streets last year, the whole of it, not to demonstrate, but just to watch, to observe, and to see what is different, because they're doing things that, wow, they are great. Because even when we used to do protests, and we used to do what was called the Yellow Movement protest in 2005, We were not that many. We did not get that kind of traction. So this is very good. And I do not think that these young people are being ignored or their power is dissipating. No, I think it's growing. The point is that it is not all a straight line. You cannot go to the streets every day. So when they step back to reorganize, to rethink issues, they have not been defeated. Yes, some of them have been killed. Yes, there have been efforts to take over by the political leadership. But the seed of that these protests have planted will germinate and it will grow into a huge tree, the tree of freedom.
Ah,